We welcome Professor Dr. Manjula Jain. She is from Tirthankar Mahavir University. A warm welcome to you, madam.
Greetings from my side to all the eminent panelists today on this e-conference. The conference title that is very pertinent for all of us to deliberate upon. And I'm joining your e-conference since the start of the day. And I again congratulate Mr. Som Sharma ji and Supriya ji, Dr. Rane, to you, because these kind of platforms give us really a thought-provoking idea for us how to implement those aspects which we have faced during the last 2 years. And this is the insights that we have got today. They are really helpful for all of us to implement as the stakeholders in the higher education institutions. So without taking much of the time, and all the eminent experts today, they have already focused on various aspects of the COVID impact on higher education. And we have got to learn so many things today, whether it's from the Vice-Chancellors or the eminent dignitaries. But today I would like to restrict myself with the discussion on the problems and the challenges that we have faced in the education system during this COVID, and what measures were taken to continue the students' learning during the closure of these education institutions, and whether those measures have the viability for continuation in the years to come. Because this pandemic has made us to learn that nothing is certain, and the only thing that is constant is yet change only. So I would like to start with a very a problem that was faced and the research group that was by Azim Premji University. This research is really very thought-provoking for all of us to understand that what heavy loss this COVID pandemic has done to our kids, to our students. And this research was carried out in around 44 districts across 5 states. And those states were Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttarakhand. And it covered around more than 16,000 children who were ranging from class 2 to 6 in around more than 1,100 schools. And this research was carried out in January 2021. And you all will be surprised to learn that 92% children lost at least one specific language ability sitting at home. And around 82% lost at least one specific mathematical ability from the previous year across all classes. This is really very much threatening for our youth, for the kids who will be the youth of this country. And this gives us the impact that school closures have not only resulted in the loss of curricular learning, but also given rise to some widespread phenomena of regression, that is forgetting by the students of learning from the previous class. So when we are not able to actually retain our foundational learning abilities, such as reading with understanding or performing the simple mathematics like addition or multiplication, so this regression will impact learning of not only more complex abilities, but also conceptual understanding across subjects. And this will lead to the cumulative loss over the years. And this is not only going to impact or affect the academic performance in school, but also the future learning in college. So this research has been really very much, the results that have come up are really frightening. And we all know that there has been a lot of platforms in online educational tools, if we say, and for both educators and learners. But there were, the hiccups that we faced to adopt them, whether that was related to accessibility or affordability or flexibility or how to adapt to that learning pedagogy. So educational policy. So these were various hiccups that were faced when we had to adopt these platforms or these educational tools. And if we look at the statistics is really again very much thought-provoking for again all of us. And there were a lot of challenges for us how to make learning happen during the time of closure of education institutions. Main problems that we had was how to make the course content available in digital form. Then there was the problem of digital divide. That is, the students were not having the internet facilities, the electronic devices, such as like smartphones or desktop computers, laptops. This was the digital divide that we faced a lot. Then there was also a psychological impact on the students. And if we look at what was the language in which maximum courses were there in higher or technical education, that was English. And there was also the issue of conducting examinations. Challenges there were being faced by the faculties or teachers in conducting the online classes, and because they were not adapt to these kind of online platforms. So I should really congratulate and thank our higher education authorities at the center, at the state, at the university level, that they took certain measures within a very lesser time in order to make learning happen across all the levels. And if we look at certain measures, we have also to see whether they are viable in the current scenario as well as in the future years to come. So if we look at from the UGC initiatives in the higher education, we all understand that earlier to this pandemic, only 20% course content was to be there in the digital form, but later on it was enhanced to 40% content could be delivered online by the universities. And when that comes to digital divide, it was also addressed by making the content available on TV and through Swayam Prabha channels. So we all used to get these kind of notices from UGC that yes, Swayam Prabha channels are there, and the students, the school level or the higher level education can be accessed onto these kind of platforms. And if I remember well, that around like 34-35 educational channels were broadcasted. And IITs also on their part, they had digitized around more than 20-25 courses in engineering. So there was another problem that was related to the language or the medium of instruction, as I said. So in higher or technical educations, there were more than 1600 courses in total, and most of them were in English. And it was the effort was made that how to make them multilingual. And we all had received this kind of notification also, that if any language you are conversant with, these kind of courses need to be translated into multi languages. This was a very welcoming effort on the side of the authorities. And very important, the effect that we faced was the psychological support system of the students. All of a sudden, they had to sit at home, and they were also going through the pains of pandemic. So this kind of psychological support was also provided by the higher authorities, and UGC had raised the platforms with the launch of Yukti and Manodarpan. I remember that these kind of helplines, I don't know that how much the students have taken the use of this, but these were actually the efforts in order to support them psychologically. And if they encounter any problem related to their stress or emotions, the tele-counselors were there to address all of them. So I should say that the Indian education system had the education in emergency kind of system during the COVID. And these various platforms, they were, so much made friendly that we were compelled to adopt the system that we were not prepared for. And if I remember, then AICT was also very much active in terms of conducting the virtual faculty training programs using the platforms like Microsoft WebEx. Yes, we had heard about these platforms, but they will become the talk of the town during this pandemic. We never ever thought that yes, these kind of facilities have to be taken up. We used to take it as the emergency technologies, but they had eventually come out as the emerging technologies. So AICT conducted so many programs on human values also. And the most important thing that the learning should not stop was it initiated the online processes to conduct inspections also. And I happened to be the witness of so many inspections in terms of how the physical inspections were, complemented with the online inspections prima facie. So this was also a very good initiative, so that the learning should not stop if the quality parameter had to be achieved by any institution. And in order to challenge the mind of the youth, hackathons were also they were also organized by IIC's Ministry of Education, virtually at around 50 virtual centers, and our university was one of them. So there were many other alternatives, platforms which are given to us in terms of learning, like two inter-university centers of UGC. We all know that Consortium for Educational Communication, CEC, and InflivNet. They also worked proactively to link all the universities and colleges to the digital content platform. And there were a lot of e-courses that were made available by UGC at the postgraduate level and the undergraduate level. And it was made mandatory by the UGC for all the universities that they should at least come up with some SWAM online courses or MOOCs or various platforms can be available to them in order to post or in order to put up their resources for the benefit of the student fraternity. So there were a lot of platforms we came to know, that is e-PG Pathshala or e-content courseware in undergraduate, Shodh Ganga. So these were the platforms where we were required to put up our resources so that learning takes place at all levels, at all places. And we all know that around 24 crore school children, out of which 12 crore children were from class 1 to 5, and more than 6 crore from 6 to 8 and 9 to 12. They had a huge instructional loss and their life jolted. So remedial steps were taken up at the school level, structuring the Diksha platform. So these were some of the initiatives, the measures that were uptaken by the government for uploading the content and bringing the states on board, and uploading of videos, podcasts. They all were made available to the students to learn. And when it comes to the teacher capacity building programs, there was a program, I remember, Nishtha, that was like national initiative for school heads and teachers holistic development, that was undertaken. And this was involvement of CBSE and NCERT was done to impart ICT content technology, pedagogy integration, and how the teaching learning strategies could be undertaken, including the remote assessment of learning outcomes of children. So learning outcomes were also mapped, and it was taken up as a challenge that how the e-content would be able to make the mapping of the learning outcomes and where can be the deviation that can happen. And one of the most happening initiative that took place was the incorporation of QR code by NCERT in every chapter. So since these kind of steps were very, very helpful for the students, e-textbooks, e-contents on National Repository of Open Educational Resources. So these kind of initiatives help the students to have the unstoppable learning. And there was also an initiative called PM E-Vidya. And there is also the mentioning of this PM E-Vidya in the budget that was announced by our finance minister, that how this PM E-Vidya is going to create a ripple in the online learning and how it can enable multi-mode access to education. So when we talk about the initiatives of the measures, these measures have already been taken up. And the need of the hour is how we are going to actually make them sustainable, and how do we make this digital divide lesser within a few years to come. And again, there are certain things to be learned in order to have a sustainable model from the best practices by different countries which are very small in terms of their population, in terms of their area, but they have taken up a suitable modification. For example, they have taken good steps in proactive planning. They have taken up very clear protocols for reclosings, and flexibility in local decision making has been given to them. So that will make them to adjust their, the risk that they can have by closing the colleges and when they can open it. How can they simplify the curriculum? How can they adapt to the academic calendar? How they can make the smaller in-person classes, staggered school days or weeks or breaks can be organized. How the blended learning can be given to them in these kinds of shifts classes. So how we can support the teachers, principals, or school staff on making the remedial measures and to meet the new psychosocial needs of the students. So like Jordan, Turkey, Nicaragua, they are very small countries, but they have launched some very, very important tools and the processes in order to bridge the gap which a particular student may have in the learning plan due to the closure of the colleges or the schools. And accordingly, we can apply those lessons in the current scenario in our current education system. So in order to consolidate what we have deliberated just now, so there are certain steps that we can have for continued learning, as a budget allocation was the need of the hour to put up on the digital or online education. And I'm very happy to say that Finance Minister, she has increased the allocation for education sector, this budget for education sector, and she had paid more stress on digital learning. This shows that our government is having proactive approach towards the digital learning in terms of if the closure of the school or the college is again done. And it is also planning to launch a digital university wherein the development of e-content in all Indian languages would be available for our students. And this digital university would be established to provide students across the country to have universal access to education with personalized experience. I hope that this brings laurels to our country if this model becomes successful, and we all are pro towards it and would be putting our wholehearted contribution in making this model successful. And use of satellite TV for telecasting the educational content. And you can also have increased bandwidth, how to have the increased bandwidth that may be provided for community radios in the areas wherein internet is not very much reachable. In the same way, DD is the most cost-effective solution in order to have the educational content being uploaded there or being telecasted there. And Ministry of Information and Broadcasting as well as Department of Telecommunication, they also need to upgrade and revive the tele-education networks in order to have the continued learning. So these are some of the measures that we can go for. And we have never to forget that, yes, digital education is the need of the hour. It is going to survive. It is the actual future of the country, wherein the MOOCs or the recorded online courses, the integrated learning management system, artificial intelligence-based education tools, augmented and virtual reality education solutions, virtual labs, simulation exercises through those labs, they are to be developed at a massive scale, not only at the college level, but at the school level. And we have also to take various measures in terms of bridging the gap of this digital divide, and preloaded tablets can be one of the solutions, which the Union Territory of Ladakh has already taken up, and it has distributed at a good scale. So many of the states would be doing this. And we also have to see that institutions of national importance like IITs or triple ITs, or they have to be instrumental in making this public-private partnership go at a very indigenously low rates, so that everyone has the affordability towards these kind of tools. And when we talk about the other measures, we need to understand that all this would be delivered by the teachers, and capacity building of the teachers should be our priority, so that they are well trained in blended mode of education, how it is to be delivered, how it is to be prepared at all levels. And conscious efforts have to be made in order to remodel our curricular learning, so that any impediment in this field is sorted out. So let us all remember one thing, that Maslow before Bloom is the common phrase that is used in our education circle. And this must be the mission for online learning, for the continuation of the education during the present pandemic. And this phrase was typically used to ensure that students are safe and have their basic needs met before online courses or learning commences. So we all need to deliberate upon a multi-pronged strategy if we have to manage the crisis, and we have to build a resilient education system. So with these words, thank you so much for making me the part of this wonderful panel, and all the best to FELA for organizing this program. Thank you.